Right guys, welcome back. So in this video we're going to look at loading levels via trigger events essentially. So the idea will be that at a certain point, pardon me, you will get to the end of a level, you will run into some form of box and you will hit that and it will load the next level up. If you want to think outside the box a little bit, what you could also do is you could have like a main hub level with, say you had 10 levels. It's got 10 of these boxes in behind doors that only open once you've completed one of the other levels. So that's how we need to set it up. We need to set it up in a way that it will work on lots of different levels, or you'll be able to have lots of them in one level, if that makes sense. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to define the level within the object. I'll show you what that means in just a second. I'll show you what I've done, just a couple of changes really. I've put in a new empty object here just so we can add some functional assets in, so any assets in the game with some form of function, such as the one we're about to create. And I've also added a new tag in for a load level trigger. If you can't remember to do that, I'll do that with you in a second anyway. So right click, add in another cube. I'm going to leave this one at 0 for the simple fact that I'm going to make a prefab out of this. So you'll see what I'm doing, how I'm doing it and all that kind of fun stuff. I'm going to call this, actually I'm going to call it the prefab to start with, load level, messing up here, trigger. I'm also going to make sure it is actually a trigger because currently it's not. So click that, add the trigger. I'm going to add a tag. I'm going to remove the previous one just so you can see what I'm doing. So add a new tag. I'm going to call this load level trigger. What I'm also going to do just to make my life a little bit easier, I'm going to copy that because I'm going to be using it in some code in a minute. So I've got it exactly how it is there. I don't have to worry about typing it wrong. Save that. I'm going to go back to this. I'm going to actually apply the tag because it doesn't do it by default. So currently, if my ball hits that, it won't bounce off of it because it's tagged as a trigger. It will do whatever I tell it to do with a trigger, if that makes sense. So from here, I'm going to... oh, that's another change. Actually, I do tell a lie. There are another change. I've just made 3 more levels. They're just empty levels. Let me save changes to this. They're empty levels. They've just got different coloured backgrounds just so that we can tell if I've loaded into these different levels. If you don't have to do that, you literally go to File, New Scene, and you just change the camera colour there. Fairly simple. I'm not going to talk through how to do that. Right, so yeah, we're back into this scene. We have our functional assets. We have this in our functional assets. As you can see, we can't really see it at the minute, but I'm going to change that towards the end of the video so we can distinguish between the 3 different levels and the triggers for them. Right, so I'm going to go into scripts. I'm going to create a new script. This is going to be our load level trigger script. I'm going to keep referring to things as load level trigger because I've now got a tag, an object, and a script. But you can do that, so it's not a problem. I'm going to go into here. There we go. So what we've got here, we've got this. What we need to make sure, because we're going to be using scene management, we need to make sure we predefine that. There are like specific functions and things we can use within certain levels, but we need to tell Unity we want to use these, if that makes sense. So we've already got these by default, which are the kind of normal ones that you use. I would suggest never deleting these unless you know what you're doing. So using Unity Engine scene management. Remember, we don't have to type this out if we, get the first couple of letters. We can just find it, make sure it lines up. I'm going to define at the start. I'm only going to define one variable really. I'm also going to delete these start functions and update. I don't need them. So to start with, I'm going to define the public int for level. Oh, no, it's not camel cased. Level to load. And I will define this in the actual editor of which level I'm going to load up. And then underneath this, I'm going to add in a public void. So this is the function of load defined scene. I just don't want to confuse it with anything else, so that's why I'm doing it that way. Open bracket, close bracket, open curly brace, close curly brace. Now we've got this in here to be able to run around with. So the function is fairly simple. It is just scene manager dot load scene, and where it asks us for a string name or a build index. I'm really quite popular today. It's all kicking off. I'm just gonna refer level to load, because that means we can change it per object rather than just having one big thing. The way this is going to work, as you can see, nothing triggers this. At the minute, nothing triggers this at all. And the reason for that is because the ball controller is going to trigger it. So let me save all of these. Let's go back into here. We've got this sorted as a tag, and we've got this here. So I'm just going to apply this. Oh, I think I'm going to apply this. I'm going to apply this to here. I'm going to leave it at 0 for the time being because, as I say, I'm going to prefab it and change it. One last thing to mention, if you've made all the scenes that I've made, you just need to make sure you go into build settings and set them up in here. You just drag them in. Put them in the right order. You can always change the order that they're in if you want. Mine kind of makes sense. I've got a test scene at 0, and then level 1 at 1, level 2 at 2, and level 3 at 3. Duh. But yeah, so we've got this working so far. This doesn't do anything yet because nothing's triggering it, but this is where we come in here and we make it all fun and games. What we're going to do is we're going to set up a new function. So remember, function is void. Yep, it's just better than typing function. Void on trigger enter. Make sure to type it exactly like that because this is another one of them that's a variable. Every video that update download fails. I'm going to have to disable that at some point. So now I say that every time. I'm adding quite a lot of space in here for the simple fact this function is going to run a lot for us. So if we have something where you go up to something, press it, and it opens a door, or you fall onto something, it kills you, they're all going to be referenced in here. So I've got my on trigger enter. I've kind of gone a little bit wrong here, but I'm going to pretend I did it on purpose. We're going to define a collider, and I'm going to refer to whatever the thing we collide with as being the other object. And now this is where things get interesting because I need an if statement. So if other dot compare tag. Obviously earlier on I this is super annoying. I copied something else since. Load level trigger, which is what I called that thing earlier on in the tag. Double close bracket because we've got a bracket there. Oh, it's really kicking off that today. Open curly brace, close curly brace. And all I'm going to do now is I'm going to go, right, so if the other object is tagged as this, then I want to reference this and call this to happen. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to put other dot get component. In here, I'm going to look for the load level trigger. Close bracket, open bracket, close bracket. I'm going to find the specific function that I want. So load predefined level. Yet again, close, open. End it with a semicolon, and hopefully, there we go. This should work. So they're all saved now in there. I've defined this as saying we're going to run into this. If it's this, do this. That's essentially what that says. So let's see if this works. So I'm going to set this in here to be level 1. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, just so we definitely hit it. And let's see. So if I hit that, or if the ball hits that, we should go into level 1. There we go. Level 1 is the red level. Jobs are good, and that's working. So that's all spot on. I'm going to, I'm relatively happy with that. That's working. I'm going to put this back at 0. And let me think. I'll make it a little bit taller. Let me see how tall that actually is. No, not that tall. And maybe a bit wider as well. What I'm also going to do, just to make life, not life easier, but just to make things look a little bit better, I'm going to, I like round numbers, I'm a bit OCD with that. I'm going to put can you see how the box collider is perfectly in line with it? So you wouldn't actually ever go into this, you would just hit the edge of it. So I'm just going to make this a little bit smaller. 0.5. You see how it's kind of there now, so we actually enter it. I might make that a little bit bigger, 0.7. So we actually go into this, because this is going to be an object that we can see through in a minute it is anyway, because I'm going to do that. So there we go, we've got this. I'm going to make a prefab from this, so let me go to my prefabs folder, drag this straight into here. Right, so we've got this object. Actually, by default in the prefabs, I would like it to be 0. So let's make a material to make this see-through, and then I'll show you it working, and then we can move on. So create a new material. This is going to be level 1 trigger. You could just have one color for them all, but I'm going to do this where I've got multiple triggers set up. So I made it red because level 1 is red. So that kind of works, I suppose. I am going to have this as a, let's think, transparent. Do I want it transparent? Do I really want it transparent? We'll see. We'll see. Oh, what am I doing? It's all gone wrong. It's all gone wrong. Right, there we go. So I've not the transparency down in here. This is the alpha here. So I'll attach that to that. You see now, that's semi-invisible or transparent. So let me move this up to here. Move it over here. I'm going to duplicate this twice. And I'm also going to duplicate these twice. If you forget what the shortcut is, it's Control and D. I'm going to call this level 2 trigger. And I'm going to call this one level 3 trigger. Off the top of my head, I think level 2 is blue. And I think level 3 is green. So now I'm just going to attach these to them. I'm going to go in here, and this is now going to load up level 2. This is going to load up level 3, and we're just going to double check this one. There we go. Right, so there we go. We've got 3 different ones in there. This should work. So we know that the level 1 one works. So let me try the level 2 one. Straight into the blue scene. Back into this one. Is it going to go? There we go. Straight into green scene. We have 3 different levels that we load from one very small bit of scripting that we did, that we can use either as multiple different objects in a scene, or we can use them in multiple different scenes, if that all makes sense for you. So that's this one. That's spot on. That's working. We can put an end to our scenes and work it from there. Jobs are good. What I'm going to do in the next video, I will probably talk you through very quickly on setting up something called a kill Z, and just in general objects that kill you when you touch them. And by kill you, you'll just load up the level again, because it won't be like a restart function. But yeah, thanks a lot for that. Spot on.